Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. People are talking around the problem of this disconnect, and we're always trying to connect to our employees. I came across a company in Kanas City, which I just drove through, called Empowered Electric, and their motto is people over profit. And I got the founder, Josh Levin. Where did this come from, Josh?
I've been in the construction industry since I was about 8 or 9 years old. And what I was noticing is in construction, a lot of times people were treated like batteries, meaning they were plugged in, sucked dry, thrown away, and replaced. And I didn't know if that was just the companies that I had worked for, or if that was how the industry in general just operated, that you had to put profit above people, that you had to win jobs at a loss and make money on change orders, if that's how things had to be. Luckily, I was young enough, stupid enough, had a supportive wife enough to kind of just question that and jump out and just say, like, what would happen if I cared more about people and less about profit? Like, would this company work? And 7 years later, 62 employees, $56 million in revenue. The answer is when you care more about people and less about profit, you attract great people and great profits. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad I was dumb enough to ask that question. So
well, I've got to know you a little bit. You got your own podcast, and I find lots of people that talk about how they care about their people. I have a harder time finding people that demonstrate that behavior. So what does that look like on your day-to-day operation? How do you do that?
Yeah, man, it's one of the most frustrating things. We live in this world of like viral share, clickability, hashtag catchy, taglines. It's disgusting how people say things that they don't mean. And so you have to be alert on that. But I think a coward lets go of words, right? So just because someone abuses a word or somebody just steals a saying and doesn't mean you should give up on it. Like we say a lot of times, like, win-win. So how do we care more about people, less about profit? Well, one of the very first things we do in the interview process, we talk about wage. We have flags in the ground where we talk about wage and where people put people. And one of the reason I do that is I read a book called Never Split the Difference. And in it, they talk about that the first person to say a number loses in a negotiation. So I gladly and willingly lose, saying, hey, here's what we can pay. Here's where we're around. This is what we're thinking. I will lose in this negotiation for a win-win, because if you don't feel valued and cared for by me, you're not going to show up. You're not going to be punctual. You're not going to be reliable. You're not going to work hard. You're going to waste more time on your phone in the porta potty than you're actually going to be productive if you don't feel valued. And vice versa, if I have to question everything, if I have to be micromanaging you, watching over you like a hawk, look, I have way more important things to be doing than checking in on what time you get to a job site. If there's not a mutual win-win here, this isn't going to work. So that's just one example. The other thing is I'm very clear about people over profit or people greater than profit. When people say that, you have to really understand, when you care more about people and less about profit, it's I lean in the direction of people. Not I don't care about profit, right? Because without profit, there's no gas in the car. You're not going anywhere, right? You got to make profit to take care of the people. It just means that what are we going to put first? The person, the customer, their mental health, their well-being, accountability, all these types of things. So those are just some real quick examples. In 7 years, my greatest sense of accomplishment hasn't been how much net profit we've made. I know whenever our payroll hits $1 million. I don't know when our bank account hits $1 million. In 7 years, we've never had layoffs. We've never had downtime.
Nice.
Even through COVID, 40 hours a week, every single week for every single employee that wanted to work. That's where I really say, like, I step up. I think a lot of business owners, as I've grown, I've heard them say, they said, hey, man, at 50 employees, I was making the same amount of money I was making at 15. So why would I hold on to that heartache and that stress of 50 employees? To which I say, because those 35 people matter. That's why. Like, their families matter, their groceries matter, their houses matter, like their hobbies and their college funds and all that stuff. Why do I employ 50 people instead of 15 and make the same money? Because it's not just about my money. Okay. Nice. I don't view Empowered Electric's money as my money. I'm a steward of it. It's the company's money. So yeah, that's just some quick examples. Sorry, and I said the F word. I shouldn't have said that. It just fires me up how selfish entrepreneurship can be. How like God complex, egotistical, narcissistic. Those are the characteristics of most entrepreneurs. I could just never listen to a boss, so I started a company. I would gladly listen to a boss.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't see anyone doing what I was doing in this space. So sorry for the soapbox rant.
Hey, that's what we're here for. Yeah, people want to feel connected, right? To feel connected, people need to be seen, heard, and valued. My son just going through some transitions in his work in manufacturing, and I think if people are saying to him, "Hey, this is the stakes in the ground on wages," I mean, just a transparent start to the relationship. Why does it have to be a mystery and when there's going to be an increase and when there isn't?
Yeah. Also, we have evaluations twice a year, every single January and every single July. We have never missed in 7 years. So whether it was 2 employees or 62, doesn't matter. Yeah. Every January, every July we meet. And the one thing that we do is so that people don't feel like the good ones are at the beginning and the bad ones are at the end. During the month of January, we review everyone. And then February 1st, all raises take effect. We evaluate everyone in July, and then in August 1st, every raise takes effect. Now, it changes during your apprenticeship and journeyman, so like we could get into that, but like one of the things that people try to hide behind, which is disgusting, is like, well, we could do that if we were a smaller business, but we're a large company, so we don't get to, I love that you said seen, heard, and value. If you don't see, hear, and value your employees at 2, you're not going to value them at 2,000. And if you don't value them at 2,000, at 20, you wouldn't value them either because they're just a number to you. You're looking for excuses to not see them, not hear them, not value them. And the truth is, Empowered Electric, so on our social media, if you go to Empowered KC on Instagram, you're going to see a lot more pictures of a lot of other people, not me. I'm not the face of the company. I might be the voice. I might be like the visionary of the company, but I'm not the face of the company. And truth be told, they are the face of the company. They are the ones that are making stuff happen. And what is the customer paying us for? Good marketing and sales? No. Like when people say like we give out free estimates, duh, everyone does. Get a new tagline. What they're paying for are lights to be installed and gear to be fired up and equipment to be wired up. That's what they're doing. They're the most important person in this company, not me. This company would do fine without me. Fine without electricians? Shoot, like that ain't happening.
Manufacturing, someone's got to pull the handles, and that's a subject matter expert. So I always do good research before we do a podcast. And so Diana, my partner, I had researching you, Josh, and she says, I want to see, learn more about this. And she says, I love this. It's pictures of his electricians. That's what it's about. And I said, yeah, that's why I'm so happy we got him on the podcast. Because it's like, it's just a different way of thinking. It's kind of like about us. Yeah. Here's the people that's going to install your lights because that's why you're giving us money. There's no other reason why they give you money. Yeah. I like how you say that profit's important. So we can have happy employees, but we've got to have accountability as well. How do you balance that with your relationship and that transparency?
Well, here's the thing. So the ABCs of business, right? And it's like, I always tell people, and people always try to say that I'm being like falsely humble or discrediting this. I'm an idiot. I am not a very smart person. I can't spell electrician or entrepreneur. That's why I'm CEO. I can spell that, right? But the truth is like, pay attention to everyone. And as I was growing, like I heard a lot of people talking about how they were growing their business. And actually, I would love to be on a panel with Simon Sinek to tell him I think he's more of a motivational speaker than a business coach. He doesn't know what he's talking about in regards to business. Like, and the reason I say that is everyone right now is talking about the B's and C's of business, the brand and the culture, right? Everybody wants to talk about the brand, what everyone outside of your company thinks about your company. So it's great marketing, great logos, storytelling, start with why, all that kind of stuff, right? Capturing people's attention. Then you have another group of people they talk about culture, right? The C. So we got the B. Now we go to the C, the culture. What people inside feel about the company. So we're talking about unlimited pay time off and work-life balance and all these kinds of frou-frou, whatever things, right? Culture. But what they're not talking about is the A. What's the A? Ability. Your ability to do what you say you're going to do. And I don't care how great your brand is, how great your culture is, how great your logo and marketing and all that kind of stuff is. If you can't turn the light bulb on when it's supposed to come on, are they going to hire us because we have a great logo, because I have an awesome podcast, because our guys are so helpful and nice? No, they want the light to come on. And if more companies don't start focusing on that, like there's going to be a big problem because like, I feel like you can coast a little bit if you have a great brand, if you have great
Mhm.
culture, so like companies that we think of, like WeWork, right? That was the hottest brand in the world for
Mhm.
5 years. That was taking the world by storm, right? All of a sudden, financials come out and their ability isn't as good as they say, right? Google has great company culture, right? Remote work. You can go anywhere. You can work anywhere, anytime. I remember just hearing that all those companies that said you can work from home forever are now demanding employees to come back, right? Because
Mm.
whenever I don't see you, I don't hear you, I don't value you, you're just a number and stuff's not happening. Ability is the most important thing. So, anyways, ABC's
Love
a
it.
business, ability, brand, culture.
Yeah. And that's where that honest conversations of, hey, you're going to make me better if we really do talk about ability. Are we doing a good job or not? And let's
Well,
have
and
that
that's
open conversation.
what you talked about the flags in the ground of like, hey, at this wage, if at this ability, we pay this wage. At this ability, we pay this wage. It also gives people a target, not like, hey, I can get to that wage in 7 years, but I can get to that wage the second I have that ability. So if I can do that thing, I have a tangible milestone that I can run to. Like, I know the pace, I know the distance, I know where I need to get. And it gives people just like a realistic, like, hey man, you're not there. I know you want to make
Mm.
that. Could you do that? Do you want that level of responsibility? Can you handle that stress? If the answer is no, here's the truth. Even at that wage and that weight of responsibility, you're probably not going to last. You're going to buckle under the pressure. You're going to
Yeah.
give up. And we don't want that. So,
Yeah.
anyways.
I'm curious. There's a lot of testament of just being transparent with your people. Not everyone's gonna make it, but because you're being transparent, and are you getting better ambassadors when they are not with you? So have you had people leave your organization, but leave it on saying, "Hey, Empowered Electric, it was a good place. It just wasn't a good place for me."
Yeah, we have had. I think one of the things that sucks about being transparent is the more you care, the more you're going to get hurt. I mean, the
Mm,
truth is, in 7 years, I've gotten my heart and my balls stomped on
mm,
over and over and over again. But I always joke and I say, man, pain is evidence that you're alive. No pain is evidence that you're dead. And so I'd rather hurt and be alive than not feel anything and be dead. And so there's been countless times where, like, whether it was through someone quitting or someone getting fired or just something not working out, man, it will rip my heart out. And I honestly have to remind myself, it's on my wall right in front of me where I'm looking right now. There's a skyline of Kansas City and it says people over profit, because there's some times where I'm like, F it, dude.
yeah.
It hurts too much to care. I don't want to do this anymore. You give this person a second, third, 10th, 20th chance, then they don't value it and they just spit in your face and lie about you, and it sucks. So I would say, honestly, man, I've more so than like having great brand ambassadors, because we do have those. Most of those still work here, or they're like customers that we've done business with. The people that get terminated or quit, it's usually something pretty salty and pretty painful.
Mm,
Sucks.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that is tough. But sometimes even after they leave and they have more life experience, they look back and say, you know what, that time of Empowered Electric, I learned from that. I may not have liked it in the moment, but the behaviors that you're talking about, Josh, of just having those hard conversations, saying, hey, I'm going to give you a chance, but then there comes a time where it's not going to work anymore, and
Yeah.
you own this. It sounds like you have the ability to have that employee or your team own it. Is there
Mm-hmm.
something that you see that you do different through those? Because it sounds like you're having more dialogue with the people, so they know where they stand,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow you're able to shift that ownership. Like, hey man, I don't own it. I'm the CEO. I'm here to support you, but what do you need?
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
that you do different there, Josh?
Once again, like whenever I say I'm an idiot, like it doesn't mean that I'm incapable of learning. Like the opposite, I would say, is true, because I realize that I'm not very smart. I pay attention to what a lot of successful people are doing, and even better than that, actually. So when I was coming up as an electrician, dude, I sucked. I mean, it took me 2 hours to put in my first 3 plugs. Like, I was not very good, but I had a great attitude and I worked my butt off. So attitude and effort, man, that's what gets you there for the
Hell
majority of
yeah.
the time. And so as I was growing, I remember someone telling me, hey, study successful people, like pay attention to what they're doing. Hey, they show up early, they stay late, they're never the last to leave, to come back after lunch. Like they never waste a trip. So if they're going to the porta potty, they bring trash out with them, they bring conduit back, like all these types of lessons that I'm learning from good people, right?
Yeah.
But then I thought the opposite would be true, right? The inverse would be true. So if I'm going to study successful people and what they do, I should also study not successful people and don't do what they're doing, right? So I also paid attention to people that were like sucking at life. And so like they always had family drama. They never had reliable transportation. They were always late. They were always leaving early. They're always looking at their clock, you know, little things like that. They were always volunteering for the easy work and pushing off to later the hard work. So I would be the person that would always volunteer. When I would go to a job site, I would say, hey, what's the suckiest job that you don't want to do right now? I'll go do that. And what was crazy is by doing that, yeah, the job sucked. It did. I would be in, you know, crotch deep of water, freaking drilling holes, like nonsense, right? But that foreman would go, hey, I like that kid. I want to teach that kid something. Like that kid will always, you know, do the crappiest job. And that's what I would always do. And so I would study what successful people are doing and what unsuccessful people are doing. So that to say, whenever I see people go like, hey man, we have great employee retention. Okay, cool. Listen to what they're doing. Ask them the questions. But also if someone's like, man, I just can't find good help. Well, where are you looking? Well, you know, and they list off the things. It's like, okay, so don't do what they're doing and do more of what they're doing. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Study failures. Like, it's funny, like nobody wants to be mean. So it's like, dude, that's not nice to call somebody a loser. You know who I'm talking about. You can picture the person or the company that you're like, that company sucks. Yeah. Why do they suck? Don't do that.
There's a manufacturing plant and it's like, they're always looking for people. And it's like, yeah, it's about my, you know, people applying there. It's kind of like, well, let's just stop and think about that for a moment. They've never stopped hiring people. It's not because they're building new buildings all the time. So, you know, without getting finger pointing or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, hey, just look at the places that aren't advertising as much, and that, you know, what are those behaviors that you can see, you know, from the outside that maybe are making them a little bit different. I love that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would also add to that though. So like, you know, like the scientific method, right? Like I'm going to sound smart now, right? Like you make a hypothesis, you run tests, you gather data, you know, conclude whether or not your hypothesis is correct, and you retest. I Googled the scientific method to know those steps, but I'm saying, so like with hiring, so one thing that we do is we are always hiring. Well, why? Because I noticed that people were overpaying, underperforming, not holding on to people, because what their hiring practice was desperation. They would they would bid all these jobs. So in construction, you would bid all these jobs and then you might win all these jobs, and then you don't have enough people. So you're literally just hiring everybody and anybody, just going, if you're alive and can wear a tool belt, we're going to hire you. So we always kind of took this approach that we want people, not need people. So we're constantly running ads and we're constantly looking for the people that we think have the ability, understand our brand, and get our culture. And if we find someone that checks the ABCs of our business, then we want to hire them, even if we don't need them. And we're conservative with money, so we have some good cash reserves to where, like, if a great electrician pops up, we can snag them, because like we're always on the hunt. You know what I mean? And I would say in construction, hiring practice is typically just desperation, not desire.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a good point for our listeners, right? Because I'm just thinking, oh yeah, that plant that's hiring all the time, but you can't just take that one piece of data. You need to understand now, is it because that they're being super selective, and that if you're the right person, they're going to find a spot for you? Okay. That's different. So that's a little bit, more for me to think about, Josh.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing that I read was you had some communication, I know it's during COVID, but it was because of what else can we do in this time but bring one another back to what truly matters, relationship. So that relationship, if another owner like yourself is listening and they're thinking, oh yeah, I know his name and stuff, but what does building relationships look like for you?
So one of the things that we say, so I think words create attitudes create behaviors create your life. So like, what kind of words can you use that are inclusive? And what I mean by that is, like, when we offer someone a job, we always say, hey, we think you'd be a great fit. We think you'd be a great asset. We would love for you to be a part of this, but we want you to only come on board if you are willing to come to work with us, not for us. With us, not for us is a huge thing in our core values. And what that means is, like, why does that person come to work? Do they come to work because they love you and they want your kids to be happy, wealthy, and successful, and that you can do all the things that you want? No, it's not the reason they come to work. Now, they might believe wholeheartedly in what you're trying to do. Like, that's great. They might know you, like you, trust you, all that stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason that they're coming to work at Empowered Electric and work with us is they believe that Empowered Electric should exist, yes, but they have kids, they have a spouse, they have desires, they have goals, they have dreams. And this is something that can help them get to their goals. And I just always like really stress on that like we are a part of their story. They're not just a part of our story. Yes, they're helping Empowered Electric grow and change the face of construction. I'm so thankful for them. But one of the things that we did, so our 401k match, we match 4%. We match 100% up to 4% of their contribution. And
Awesome.
whenever we did that, well, here's what's funny. And this is why I tell you I'm stupid. The reason we did it is every financial planner said that we needed to put a vesting period on it, right? That like if we can dollar for dollar match up to 4%, but they don't get our match for 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And it's a way to, and they said in quotes, golden handcuff them to the company. That they'll come to a point to where they can't leave because they're going to leave so much money on the table. And we specifically during the interview process, number one, we lose the negotiation because we go first. Yeah. And then we tell them, and hey, with the 401k plan, it is fully vested the second it hits your account because we want you to want to be here, not have to be here. And if your dream takes you to Montana to go cattle ranch and put light fixtures up there, we want you to take your money. We're thankful for your time. We don't want to handcuff you to this company. And so little things like that, I know, once again, words create realities. Whenever you say, hey, you work with me, not for me, the idea that just because you sign someone's paycheck, that they need to do what you say, that's stupid. That's a very old way of thinking, and it's ridiculous. Does that mean they need to disrespect you? No. But just because your name, you filed the LLC and you jumped out first, doesn't mean you're more important. It doesn't mean you're above them. We're struggling like hell to create an organizational chart because there are different paths of responsibility, but every single chart has CEO up here and first year apprentice down here. And we're like, how do we make this circular? How do we make this Knights at the Round Table where every single one of us is important? Saying those things regularly. We have a all company meeting the second Thursday out of every month. These are the things that we talk about, people, because vision leaks, words matter. Every month we need to remind people, hey, this is hands in the middle, not hands out, not hands out. It's all together. So yeah, just constantly, and if so to your listener, like if you're like, well, hey man, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this and they just don't have that passion tank filled. You need to fill it. What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you investing in? Are you drinking your sorrows away every single night rather than listening to freaking Tony Robbins light fire in your blood? Like you need to start to make those different types of changes to remind yourself, to get you to focus on why you started this company. Because chances are, here's the truth that most people don't realize. Most entrepreneurs could make more money being a number 2 through 10 at any other company. I could honestly make more money. I guarantee you, if I quit Empowered today and went to work for anyone else, I could make a bigger salary there. Could I make a bigger impact? No. No way. That's what keeps me here. But like, it's not just about the money. And if people lose sight of that and the entrepreneurs just looking at the bottom dollar, just looking at that, it's gross.
There's more here to unpack from Josh. I love your candidness and I can just feel that passion and energy. And that's just, you got to fill your mind up with those things. Yeah. In order to think different. Right. And you got a different perspective, man. And I love that approach of like, hey, does that make sense? You're the most important thing. Oh, by the way, we're going to keep that money that you invested for 5 years and we're going to try to lock you down here, but we really want to make you feel comfortable like family. Well, it's mixing the words over the behaviors. It makes no sense. It's confusing. It's kind of like, well, hold on a minute, but then, I don't get this until you get this. And what does that mean? Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think, just like, once again, people getting added into their story. So like, I love that you're talking about manufacturing, because I think like construction is a very dirty, dead end, not your A choice career path, but it should be. I think it's awesome if more people like could view it that way. The same thing with manufacturing. So like one of my very first jobs that I owe a lot of my success to was Scarborough Logistics. It was a big warehouse facility. Learned how to unpack trucks, learned how to freaking shrink wrap pallets, drive a forklift, all sorts of stuff, right? For minimum wage. And I remember losing that negotiation saying, hey, I would love this opportunity. I don't care. It's minimum wage. And the owner, I was actually dating the owner's daughter. The owner was actually pissed that they were paying me minimum wage because they felt bad about that. But I was like, hey man, I'm learning, I'm growing. And whenever I would work hard and get done in the warehouse, most people would just go home. So you like would unpack the truck, shrink wrap it, stack them, pallet it, all that stuff. Everyone would go home. I would bring a change of clothes and I would freaking literally go into the bathroom and shower, like take a sink shower and get the grime off my body, put on nice clothes. And I learned how to process PO tickets and I learned how to like tracking information on shipping containers. I learned about Hapag and Lloyd and all these different people. And it was like, because I wasn't just like, oh, I got paid 8 hours and 6 hours, I can just go home now. I was like, hey, what else can I learn? And I learned how to type. I learned how to use the calculator. I learned these things that whenever I became an electrician, I became a foreman and people were able to say like, hey, where's the packing slip? I could pull out the packing slip and like verify everything that we got the right delivery with the right packing slip because I had done that at Scarborough Logistics a billion times. And so it was a way that like I set myself apart. And so when people are like, yo, dude, I'm just sweeping floors. It's like, yeah, dude, if you do the best job cleaning the warehouse, then maybe you're doing the best job cleaning the inside of the office. Then maybe you're cleaning the CEO's office. Then maybe you're the CEO's assistant. Then maybe you're, you know what I mean? And it's like, dude, you can make all these incremental steps if you have the right attitude towards something and you're willing to put in the effort. If you're not looking for the path of least resistance, I remember somebody said one time, there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile. You find in your career path where the extra mile is and you go there. You will not sit in traffic.
I love that. There's not a lot of competition when it comes to, doing that extra work that you're not getting paid for at the moment, or, hey, I deserve this. But it's amazing that there's so many, whether it's someone starting in construction or manufacturing, whether it's someone running the operation, the problem is the disconnect kind of takes us back.
Yeah.
And it isn't always, the company, it's yourself, right? You have control over so much. Like you can separate yourself and you don't have to agree with everything. Like your comments on Simon, right? Like you got a little different view there and that's awesome. That's what's going to make Empowered Electric different than any place else. And we're going to leave, on the show notes, we're going to have, the link to your podcast, your company. And man, if you need any electrical work or you want to work in Kansas City, we know where to go. And this guy is 10 times exciting to meet in person, even just to hear on this podcast. So one of the things I also read about you is that, you keep it simple, right? You don't need a new message every year. You just keep doing what you're doing and repeat that same message. So what's your final, leave our listeners with today, Josh? What do you want them to hear?
So my favorite thing, kind of my life lesson is that your past doesn't dictate your future. And I knew that was phenomenal because Tony Robbins stole it from me. So I volunteered at a juvie hall for about 5 years. So I came from kind of a really bad past. And when I decided to like kind of talk about success and talk about like, advancement and things like that, I didn't want to speak at a church or even kind of, at a high school or anything like that. I wanted to speak to my kind of people that, were dealt a raw hand, that, their genetics were told they were going to be an alcoholic, that their, family background said they were probably going to be an unwed pregnancy, like all this kinds of stuff. And as I went there and I spoke to them and I shared story after story about kind of my heartache and pain and how I grew, I remember those kids, their eyes would kind of light up because we live in this age where everybody wants to be an influencer. Like everybody wants to like swipe up to buy my shoes, but not very many people want to be an example, to talk about what it hurts, what it feels like when you don't own shoes, right? Like whenever when that person, dude, I still get scared every time I swipe my debit card, no matter how much money's in my bank account. Every time I try to make a purchase, I'm thinking it's going to say denied. And when I hear denied, I hear you're just a poor, dirty kid. So I'd speak to those kids and it was crazy. I remember one time in particular, I was talking about, hey, just because that your DNA, whatever science says that you're prone to addiction, you don't have to be. And this good looking, young, 17, bright, well put together, but probably made some, not so good decisions. 17-year-old black kid raises his hand and he goes, wait a second, you're telling me even though my mom's an addict, I don't have to be one? I said, that's what I'm saying, dude. Your past does not dictate your future. And he goes, why the F has no one ever told me that before? And he was like pissed, but he lived the majority of his life just thinking that what he was told he had to be. And I referenced Tony Robbins. If you haven't watched Date with Destiny, or no, sorry, it's called I'm Not Your Guru. It's on Netflix. It's a great documentary.
Awesome.
but he says in it, so I've been saying that for years. And at the Date with Destiny, he said, stop living like your biography is your destiny. And I was like, dude, Tony Robbins out here stealing my stuff.
Oh man, I love it, man. Josh, you're under high demand. Thanks so much for sharing with our listeners. You're awesome. Keep doing awesome things. Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.